Over the last few years, we've been able to watch the breathtaking long game executed by Cardano and IOHK. Now we're inching closer to a new era where Cardano will have the option to bathe in the tears of the competition. Ready? Let's go. Bitcoin and Ethereum are not wrong or bad. They're just less capable. But there are some people in those and other communities who truly do not want Cardano to succeed. And those people are not going to like what's coming next. We got an update from Charles on Friday, and he looked like a man who had just run 900 miles, but knows he still has 100 to go. Almost time to pop bottles, but not quite. Not quite. He looks like a dude who has worked very hard. He knows he's almost there, but not quite. And he told us a couple things. The first thing is, looks like everything's on schedule. Like we've talked about on this channel for a long time, I don't think people should really care whether this happens in August, September, October, November, December. It's been years. This has been years in the making. This has been watching this has been like watching this incredible, breathtaking long game. And we're almost to the finish line. We're almost there. So to me, a couple months doesn't really matter, but I know everybody's anxious. And I think everybody in the Cardano community knows everybody in the Cardano community is anxious. So it's almost here. But Charles kind of, he laid out a little bit of a redefinition. He said, look, there's two parallel things going on. We've got the hard fork combinator event. The Alonzo hard fork combinator event is actually the point when the node can run Plutus transactions. So the node would be capable of running Plutus transactions. Then we've got another parallel thing that is all the infrastructure around that for dApp development. So we've got the actual getting of the node to run Plutus transactions. And then we've got a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built around that for dApp development. At the July Cardano 360, Kevin Hammond ran us through this really good infographic that sort of lays out exactly how these pieces interact with each other. This first piece that Charles is talking about that actually amounts to the Alonzo hard fork combinator event is this piece. Getting this Cardano node down here to the point where it can run Plutus transactions is the point at which Charles is saying they will have completed the hard fork combinator event. And everything else is kind of over on this side. So Charles is sort of dividing the world up into these on-chain pieces and these off-chain pieces over here. The reason why that distinction is important is because changes to the Cardano node actually require a fork. And that's going to be the Alonzo hard fork combinator event, of course. And all this stuff over here, all this infrastructure that's going to be built around the changes to the node to allow dApp development, all of this stuff, none of it requires a soft fork or a hard fork. The really big piece of this sort of infrastructure half is this Plutus application backend, the PAB. And Charles says they're tentatively planning for all of this to sort of be completed around September 10th. That's just a tentative date. And it sounds like they're still talking about this Cardano node piece, the actual Alonzo hard fork combinator event happening at the very end of August. But I kind of think that we're going to end up with an actual Alonzo hard fork combinator event in early September. And then we would see the rest of the infrastructure pieces sometime later on in September. But Charles points out there's also going to be this long tail development on a lot of these infrastructure pieces. And that's kind of what we'd expect. We don't expect them to push out the hard fork combinator event and some kind of like minimal infrastructure around that for dApp development. And then they just sort of like wash their hands of it and walk away. Of course, they're going to be iteratively improving all these infrastructure pieces. The dApp development environment just gets better and better. And Charles also mentioned that there would be some things on day one that would be cool. I'm hoping that's the case, but I'm really thinking that on day one, we're going to see however we're defining day one, it's obviously not going to be the exact day of the hard fork combinator event. I'm thinking day one, in my mind at least, is going to be after the hard fork combinator event and after some minimal amount of the dApp development infrastructure is in place, which sounds to me like it's going to be later in September. But I'm curious to see what we have on day one, but not as curious as I am to see what we have on day 365, because I think that's the important part. I don't think the dApps that launch on day one after these pieces are all in place are as important as what we see on day 365, a full year later, or the dApps we see 2 full years later. I think those are the really important pieces. And I'm not going to be as concerned as with what actually launches right at the beginning, but I am going to be concerned with what's being built, because I think we can admit that Cardano's launch of smart contracts is just the beginning of a new era. The Alonso era, the Gauguin era, is something brand new for Cardano, and it's going to take a couple years. It's going to take a couple years before we have fully mature dApps on the Cardano inside the Cardano ecosystem. That's not to say there won't be cool stuff in 2021, but I'm more interested in what we see in 2022, 2023, because what's being built at the point when smart contracts are live, when we're in the Gauguin era, I think what's being built and will sort of launch in 2022, 2020, 2023, if everybody's doing their job, those things should be better than things on day one, right? The dApps a year from now, 2 years from now, should be better than day one. And the user experience of the dApps that launch in 2021, hopefully in 2022 and 2023, they're better than they are in 2021. So I hope that people aren't going to they're not going to judge the future of Cardano based on the way the dApps look on day one, or what dApps are available on day one. Because I think this has always been this amazing long game that IOHK and Charles and Cardano have been playing. And I don't think the long game ends with the Alonso hard fork combinator event. I think that's just sort of the beginning of the new era. Having said that, though, I think we are going to see the people who have been in full denial that Cardano was not a ghost chain, Cardano was not vaporware, they're going to go through this extremely accelerated trip along the Cardano denial curve. They're going to go from complete denial to this very salty anger stage with the launch of Alonso. The second that smart contracts are live on the mainnet, that's going to dispel this myth that's been propagated by, I don't want to say the Ethereum community, but definitely certain people who are Ethereum maximalists. The way they've cognitively, the way they've allowed themselves to not examine the possible benefits of Cardano or the advantages of the Cardano ecosystem over Ethereum is by saying that the Cardano ecosystem would never actually exist. And the second we have smart contracts on mainnet, that myth is going to be dispelled. So this bounded rationality, the barrier to this bounded rationality is suddenly going to be broken through. And there's going to be a huge amount of saltiness. I think if we thought the certain parts of the Ethereum community were salty towards Cardano in the past, I think the amount of saltiness we see on day one after the Alonso HFC is going to be very extreme. It's already, I think everybody can already feel it ramping up a little bit. But as soon as we actually have smart contracts on mainnet, that bounded rationality is going to explode, and there's everybody who was previously in denial about Cardano is suddenly going to be in the very salty anger phase of the curve, and there's going to be a lot of criticism of the quantity and quality of the dApps that are available on day one. That's why I think it's important to remember that What we've been watching for the last couple of years has been a breathtaking long game being executed day by day, week by week, month by month. And it doesn't really end on day one after the HFC. It's really about what we've got a year from now, 2 years from now. I think there will be cool stuff. I think there will be cool stuff this year in 2021, but I think things are going to be even cooler in 2022, 2023. And I think there's going to be a huge amount of saltiness thrown at us on day one. And probably there will be some legit criticisms. I mean, there's going to be a lot of comparing any version of anything that shows up on Cardano mainnet with the very, very mature version of that on Ethereum. And while they'll avoid talking about the fact that the version running on Cardano is running at fees, running on fees that don't make it broken, they're going to talk about things like the user experience and the amount of users, the number of users, all those things. That'll be how they dismiss the existence of Cardano, because before the big complaint was always it's vaporware, it's a ghost chain, it doesn't actually exist. Now it's going to exist, and they're going to move on to sort of these quantitative and qualitative comparisons, of brand new Cardano decentralized applications to their counterparts on their very mature counterparts on the Ethereum blockchain. But I don't think that's the comparison that's important. I think it's more directional. And the thing they should be worried about is where these dApps, these brand new dApps, are going, where they're going to be a year from now, where they'll be 2 years from now, because all of a sudden the focus is going to be back on Ethereum, and the questions about whether or not Ethereum can ever achieve a proof of stake system that works and isn't broken by fees, that will become the question, because Cardano will have smart contracts. The fees will be incredibly lower than Ethereum. I won't go through the bullet list of all the strengths of the Cardano ecosystem, but all of a sudden Ethereum is going to be playing catch up, trying to get to where we already are. And while Ethereum is just trying to get on level footing with Cardano, technically, just trying to get their network so that it's in the same place ours already is, Cardano is going to be working on all of the dApps, all of the individual user experiences, all of the individual utility of all of these decentralized applications. We're going to be building the next generation of user experiences with dApps, the next generation of use cases, the next generation of utilities that never actually launched on Ethereum, because the fees made everything impractical. The lack of deterministic fees on Ethereum made it so you don't even know how expensive something's going to be. You just know it's going to be extremely expensive. The account balance system and global state had its own limitations. Cardano is going to be exploring this new frontier of true working proof of stake plus Turing complete programmability, and Ethereum is just going to be catching up. It's going to be a beautiful time to watch the fruits of this breathtaking long game finally come to hand. Talk to you tomorrow.